Taking a tour of the barebones project, we can see it has only a few folders. One called nengi has the whole nengi library in it. The game folder is divided into a client and server, which are the two programs you make, one being the game client, like the browser version of the game, the other is a server that you run with Node. It's got a third folder called bot, but that's for a more advanced tutorial. Inside of client and server, we have the most basic boilerplate version of the client and server. Let's look at the server first. This code represents a game that uses nengi, not nengi itself, but this would be the game's code, and here it uses a nengi instance, which is the server side of nengi, and demonstrates basic usage. In the boilerplate, there's a few things already typed out. There's this function that will be run when the client connects, another for when it disconnects. We start the server listening on this port. You can change the port if you'd like it to listen on another. And then there's an update loop that shows the basic syntax for receiving commands from the client. Finally, calling instance update on the nengi instance sends out whatever game state there is to send for that frame. In this game, there's nothing because there's nothing in it. Looking at the game client, we have the other side of things. The game client's a little more complicated, but it creates a nengi client. It's got a function for connecting. In this case, it logs connected to server after the connection is made. And then it's got this complicated stuff in the update loop. The update loop here calls a function called interpolate, which the details of that are also for an advanced tutorial. But for now, let's just say that the server's sending us data all the time, sending us snapshots of data every frame, and this code here on the client gives us access to a smoothed version of the snapshots from the server, something that if we were to render it would look smooth, even though the snapshots coming from the server would essentially be like a flip book. There's too much time between them. You'll see this is all the boilerplate for that, and your actual game logic connects to the process snapshot, where you can run whatever code you'd like for handling the creation of entities, updating them, deleting them, and then the other types of messages that can be sent via nengi. Outside of both the client and the server are a file that calls our game in a loop. For the client, this is main.js, and this is the file we aim to watchify at. It's the entry point of the client. All this one does is create a loop with request animation frame and call game update inside of it. For the server, we have all that in this node folder, and it's a little more complicated because for development purposes, it creates a file server that can host the file needed for the game. This is really just a nicety to make development faster. So if we go look at standalone.js, which is the entry point for the server, we see a bunch of stuff here at the top, which we'll talk about in a sec, but one of the main things it does is it calls the game server's update in its own loop. On the node side of things, we don't have request animation frame. Instead, we run loops with other mechanisms like set interval, set immediate, and other things like that. You can go look in node loop, this code right here, if you want to see exactly how this loop works. It's a complicated loop just because it has some little tricks to enhance the timing of things. But essentially all standalone does is call gameserver.update in a loop. Up here towards the top, we have the HTTP server. And this is what hosts the basic files we needed to even show the client. That all exists here in the public folder, vaguely mimicking what you see on web servers where you have a public folder. Here's index.html. Here's the JS folder where we previously built with Watchify. Here's the actual app.js we built, so this is the output from that. Human readable-ish. You can also run something like minify or uglify on that to make it compressed and not very human readable. So everything here is just the web page, the very simple web page, which we use, and there's app.js in the actual HTML. So that's all the main pieces of barebones. If you want to see a more complicated game, you can look at some of the other options in the download section to see a game with actual functionality. You can also start to dig into some of the tutorials, which begin with barebones as their starting spot and add functionality.